What's good, ladies and gentlemen? So today I want to pass on a very important holiday message about unity and love. So it's not going to be the typical message about love that you expect, because if you're someone that truly loves humanity, love requires sacrifice and struggle, and it's not easy, which is contrary to most people's view about love. We just think, oh, kumbaya, love, everything is great, but often love requires a lot of hard work. And even though love is a universal healer, it's most definitely not always easy to love. Sometimes, of course, if we're talking about love in a relationship, it can be very easy to love a loving person, but it's very hard to spread love through humanity, because in that process, we're going to have to spread love to a lot of people that hate on us. So that's what I mean. So please do comment below and like this video if you want this message of love to spread through this holiday season. Remember that that's all I'm asking is just for likes and comments, because that really does help my channel. So if you watch this on IGTV and that's why you're here, then you can skip to around the 7-minute and 30-second mark, because this message is going to be the same about up until then. And when I start talking about Bob Marley and what he meant to this movement of love and what we can learn from him, then that's where the new information comes in. So people have asked, why are you so interested in improving people's critical thinking skills? And the reason is because the powers that be know that fear is an extremely important and powerful tool to control us. We've all heard the divide and conquer narrative. You can control people by causing division, causing violence, causing us to fight with each other relentlessly. But they also understand this. They also understand, I am certain they understand, that fear is imprinted in our DNA and can be passed on for yes, not just to the next generation, but for 2 subsequent generations. So they know if they can elevate fear in today's generation, that they can also ensure control of not just this generation, but 2 subsequent generations. So some people say, what are you talking about? This sounds like a bunch of sci-fi bullshit. No, this has been scientifically proven. There's been a study, I want to say Emory University, but I'm not positive. So you can just go check this up on the internet. Look for a scientific study that was conducted with rats, where the scientists imprinted a fear of orange and cherry blossom scent into the rats. And they found that the pups, when they took the pups away from they bred the rats with this imprinted fear, and then they took the pups and removed it from the parents, so the pups could not observe their parents' fear at all to the scent that was neutral, that no rat in the wild had any type of fear to orange and cherry blossom scents. And they found that not only did the pups also have a fear of the scent, but then the pups, when they bred the pups, and the pups had pups, that it lasted for 2 generations. So I am positive that this is why those in power are trying to stir up so much fear, because it's a mechanism to control us for decades and centuries. So if I can help break this pattern, break this pattern of people stop self-identifying with political concepts like nationalism or nation state that elevate fear, destroy intellect, and allow more people to break free from the mental and intellectual change that those in power use to confine us, then everything, all the pushback I get from people about topics I speak about, it's all, and all the struggles that are introduced in my life, it's all worth it. That's why I talk about such topics. Now, Carl Sagan, one of the world's most famous astrophysicists, stated in 1995, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. Now, even though he said this, end quote, even though he said that more than a quarter century ago, I feel it is even more relevant today, because we've had 25 more years of hostility, dissension, of chaos introduced by those in power, to have learned helplessness, which is a concept I'll speak about within this video. So we have become under 25 more years of mental siege inflicted upon us. So I feel that Mr. Sagan's statement is more applicable today than even when he made it back in 1995. So I've spoken many times in the past about how only iron can sharpen iron when it comes to physical fitness. if we're someone that desires to radically physically transform our bodies, we continue to eat cheeseburgers and pizza 3 times a week. We never work out. We work out once a week. We're not committed to it. We don't exercise any type of commitment, and we still expect results. Others that observe us are going to call us lazy. You're lazy and you're undisciplined, right? But much less obvious is the fact that only iron can sharpen iron when it comes to intellectual transformation as well. So if we hold very strong beliefs, and we're inflexible in our commitment to these beliefs about news and political events that have been spoon-fed to us by the mainstream media, and we haven't conducted any outside research into the validity or the falsehood of this spoon-fed information. This is the intellectual equivalent of ingesting and eating cheeseburgers and pizzas 3 times a week and never working out. We cannot possibly be intellectually healthy through such a lazy and undisciplined diet, and we can't expect to become intellectually fit without struggle, just as we can't expect to become physically fit without physical struggle. We need intellectual struggle to become better intellectuals. And every single news event about which I speak and offer an opinion on this SK Wealth Academy YouTube channel is I only offer opinions about topics that I spent a minimum of a few hours researching, and it's never offer opinion about something that I only know the information that's been spoon-fed to me through the mainstream media networks. And on those subjects, as many of you know that watch all my videos, I say I simply don't know. I have to admit, I do not know, so I'm not going to offer an opinion. So again, people say, hey, if you continue to talk about these controversial topics like Hong Kong and say, oh, that movement may originally have been about freedom, because if you go back to the 2013 Umbrella Revolution, we know it is about Hong Kong people wanting to have self-determination in the electoral process. So the movement was organic, which I believe, but has now since been co-opted by foreign interests for their own political agendas. People say you're going to lose followers because that's not the mainstream narrative. The mainstream narrative is all about freedom. That's what's going on. So if you discuss an alternative narrative, you're going to lose a lot of followers. So you should stop talking about these controversial topics. And my response to friends telling me that is, well, that's true. I probably will lose a lot of followers, but I will also gain a lot of intellectuals. And this segment of the population is a minority segment, but it's the one that's most important to the spread of love throughout humanity, because ignorant non-thinkers can only continue to spread division and hate. Only intellectuals can spread love. So anytime anyone among us speaks truth to power, we most likely, not even most likely, we are going to oppose the beliefs of the majority of people in this world, because those in power control all the mainstream media distribution outlets. They spread their disinformation through their control of these media outlets. So the majority of people are not going to believe the truth about events. Some of the most popular events that are discussed in the news. So for the love of humanity, we must be willing to voluntarily introduce hardships into our lives. So if I explain to my friends, if I gain the support of intellectuals by speaking truth to power, which is going to be dissenting against the mainstream narrative about topics like the political situation in Bolivia, Ukraine, Syria, Honduras, Venezuela, and Hong Kong, then I'm gaining the support of more people capable of reversing the trend of division and hatred in this world and bringing love to humanity. So those that remain inflexible in their thinking and incapable of considering a dissenting view and challenging their own views as possibly wrong are only capable of spreading hatred and violence. So I'm okay with losing those kinds of followers. If I lose 1,000 of those followers, that's fine. And now one way which I wish to promote understanding my message is just by looking at Bob Marley. All he ever spoke about was the power of unity and love in his music, yet the CIA had this fat dossier about all his movements and concerts. Why? Why would anyone be opposed to a message of love and unity? Just think about that. Stop and think about that for a minute. During 2 of his most important concerts ever, which was a 1976 Smile Jamaica concert during the middle of a Jamaican civil war between the People's National Party, the PNP, and the JLP, the Jamaica Labour Party. 2 days before this concert, assassins burst into his home and tried to murder him, and he was shot in the arm. Yet he refused to cancel his scheduled concert. People said, why? Why would you expose yourself in front of tens and what turned out to be hundreds of thousands of people, where and the same assassins that just tried to kill you 2 days ago could hide themselves in the audience and shoot you and kill you. And he said, the people that commit evil in this world don't take a day off, so neither can I. So if we're going to defeat evil, we can't take days off, because those that promote evil never take a day off. That is the embodiment of someone that loves humanity and wants to see love persist and not hatred. And furthermore, during his 1978 One Love Peace Jamaica concert, even though it was widely believed that thugs were sent by members of the opposition political party, the ones that tried to murder him just 2 years prior, Bob still sent out olive branches during the concert, brought the leaders of both political parties up on stage and asked them to shake hands and unite Jamaica's people and stop tearing the people apart. He brought one of the leaders of the party that tried to murder him. That's how much Bob loved humanity. And that is humanity. That is a message of love and freedom. So if you look at what's going on in Hong Kong, is it the same? Are they really promoting love and freedom and unity? They're waving British flags, a symbol. Now, I'm saying all of them. I'm sure there are some. Like I said, the movement organically was about freedom from the beginning, but it's been co-opted. So there are a lot of people now that have no idea what the true organic meaning of those protests were in Hong Kong, and they're the ones that are waving British flags around, like showing their ignorance, and which basically is a symbol of colonial oppression for Hong Kong. So that would be like Jews wearing armbands with swastikas and declaring swastikas as their symbol of freedom. We want the neo-Nazis to join our movement for freedom. So, just common sense tells us, right? But we don't want to believe it. We want to believe the mainstream narrative that's being promoted. So love is difficult. That we never have we seen a leader that preached a message of love have an easy life. Bob didn't have an easy life because he was always fighting against the neocons that wanted perpetual war in this world. So it's much easier to preach a message of hate. It is, and be accepted by those in power. Look at how popular some leaders and presidents around the world have been by preaching division and hatred among us, by trying to divide us. They become more popular, and if you preach the message of love, you'll never be accepted by those in power. By promoting love and unity. Love and unity spreading throughout humanity is the biggest fear of those in power. So if you speak truth to power, those in power are going to come after you with a hammer, metaphorically speaking, and try to nail you down. So as I said, Bob Marley had many struggles in his life because of his message. Gandhi was another figure, right? Always preached love and peace, not violence, not even toward his oppressors. He never preached violence. He preached love and peace, and he had a very difficult life because of it. So the very aggressive push by those in power to force people to pick sides, we're not allowed to be neutral. We're not allowed to be Switzerland, right? We always have to pick a side. And even when we haven't performed any research about a topic, that's not a new tactic. It's a tactic that's been used to control us for centuries. You push people into taking strong opinions about topics that we understand nothing about, because, as I said, ignorance fuels misunderstanding. Misunderstanding fuels hate. Hate fuels division and violence among us. However, by staying on the fence because we are smart enough not to be pushed into taking a side by propaganda spread through mainstream media and researching a topic thoroughly before we even think about assuming a side, and not just merely ingesting the narratives spoon-fed to us by mainstream media journalists who aren't even journalists. Like, I've already gone through this rant about how journalists are really just like presenters, TV presenters these days. They know nothing about the topics about which they speak. They're fed the narratives to speak, and they are not true investors. They're, in fact, an embarrassment, a blight on the industry of journalism today, mainstream media journalists and news anchors. So this is a stance, right? If we really research topics to understand what the truth is, this is a stance that spreads understanding. Understanding fuels compassion and empathy. Empathy fuels love and fuels unity and forms a united front against those in power. That's why love and unity are hated concepts by those in power. It's not acceptable to them, and they made it not acceptable to us, very unfortunately, to answer. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on in Ukraine. I don't know what's going on in with the Uyghur Muslims in China. I just don't know. That's not acceptable. We have to take a stance based upon our nationalistic tendencies, what the state has brainwashed us to believe since we were little children. And it's the very reason many of us have such strong opinions about topics we really know nothing about. During Jamaica's Civil War, Bob Marley's art director, you know how long ago that was? Because I said, remember, his two concerts were in 1976, 1978. That is so long ago. Bob Marley's art director, Neville Garrick, was asked why Bob refused to take a political stance in the ongoing violent feud between the PNP and the JLP, the two opposition political parties in Jamaica that were using violence and spreading civil war throughout Jamaica. Now, Neville Garrick said, quote, "You can be on one side or the other, but if you try and stay on the fence, someone shoot you down off it." Meaning the people in power have been doing this for decades. So it's not just something being forwarded today. If you try to stay neutral because you don't fully understand the complexities of a situation, and you don't want to pick a side, because the powers that be have conditioned us to find it unacceptable not to pick a side and not to promote ignorance and fear by taking a side, even if we don't fully understand what our side really stands for. The reason why those in power they're so desperate for us to pick a side. Pick a side. You can't be neutral, even if you don't fully comprehend the situation. It's because it's a strategy that helps them instill learned helplessness in members of society. What is learned helplessness? Learned helplessness is a concept developed by American psychologists, I believe in the 1960s, in which people and animals, due to circumstances about reality that they are conditioned to ignore, cannot understand that they have the power to change the very negative circumstances that currently afflict them. So they act as if they are helpless to improve a negative situation that has been imposed upon them. So this is why there's no revolution against an immoral banking system today, because I really believe the majority of us have embraced learned helplessness. Because bankers are also masters of psychology, have used this concept against us. So we don't understand that we have a choice to change the current fractional reserve banking system that serves none of us except the 0.1% of the wealthiest people in this world. So we remain slaves to a system that works against our best interests. We're captive to the very people that desire to control us financially. And we never rebel because we falsely believe we are helpless to change this negative situation that we find ourselves in. So I took a class, in fact, when I was in university with the very psychologist that invented this concept. He was the one invented it. So I heard lectures upon lectures upon lectures about this concept of learned helplessness. And this is actually one of the concepts that is most favored and most applied by people in power and to control us. And I'm sure my professor did not intend for this concept to be used in such an evil manner, but unfortunately it has been. It has been co-opted by those in power and used against us. And in fact, CIA documents about enhanced interrogation techniques used to torture high-value targets taken to off-grid black sites around the world revealed that torture techniques were specifically designed to induce states of learned helplessness within these high-value targets in order to extract information from them. So if we choose sides about events happening in nations like Bolivia, Crimea, Ukraine, Venezuela, Hong Kong, Syria, etc., without conducting any independent research on our own to really try to uncover the truth about these events, then we are voluntarily descending down the path of learned helplessness, because we will never understand the truth about these events by just accepting the information that is force-fed to us. And even though we believe we are voluntarily accepting this information, we're not, because it's being spoon-fed to us. So it's almost like, how foie gras is manufactured when they stuff that tube down, it's a goose or a duck? I can't remember what foie gras is made from, goose or duck. Well, anyways, they jam a tube down its throat, force feed it to make its liver super fatty. So we are like those geese or ducks that have this tube of information. That tube of information is mainstream media. Sorry about I just realized that gesture almost looks obscene. But anyways, it's being force fed down our throats, just like with those poor tortured animals to produce foie gras. And instead of fattening our liver, it fattens our dumbs down our brain. That is the process by which we formulate a lot of our opinions, because we will never understand the truth, because we are voluntarily imprisoning our minds and sentencing our future behavior to be on par with people that dwell in a perpetual mental state of learned helplessness. And through Martin Seligman was the name of the psychologist that developed that theory of learned helplessness, and that his pioneering work in developing the concept of learned helplessness actually only involved physical subjugation to induce the state of learned helplessness. But the powers that be have upped the ante and upped the application. They took it to the next iteration of learned helplessness by inducing the state not through physical subjugation and physical torture, but by mental subjugation. The overwhelming percentage of us in society, they force us off the fence and make us choose a side in events which the majority of us are primarily ignorant about the truth. And it's a brilliant strategy, but it's devious in its brilliance, and unfortunately it's working. So this is why I speak of such topics on my YouTube channel, SK Wealth Academy 2. This is why I've been consistently shadow banned and censored by the powers that be. And at the heart of my message is when I speak truth to power. The heart of that message, that foundation of the message, is love. Love is the foundation of all my work. Even in my upcoming 20 plus online course, online academy, 20 plus course online academy, SK Wealth Academy, one of my primary missions is to empower youth to exercise self-determination over the direction of their lives. I feel like that power of self-determination is being deliberately stripped from their lives right now, both financially and intellectually, because I want all youth to take this power back so they can have the opportunity to determine the financial and spiritual direction of their lives. So my message is very similar to Bruce Lee's Be Like Water, right? Too many of us, when we encounter dissent and opposition, desire to strike back and cause more aggression and chaos instead of being like water and flowing around the obstacle. In a stream, water will flow above, below, and around all obstacles, and not try to relentlessly push back against immovable objects. But I feel like many of us in society, we try to push back all the time against any dissent instead of really just quietly listening and trying, and then using our intellectual critical thinking skills to discern if there is any validity to this dissenting opinion from our own. And therefore, we should listen more and try to discern, hey, is my belief really incorrect? Or is it correct? In some instances, we'll find our beliefs are correct, but in many others, we'll find our beliefs are incorrect. Now, Grenada, which is involved in a fight for freedom against British oppression, as were most of the Caribbean islands during the 1960s and 70s, the leaders of Grenada observed the Civil War in Jamaica. Now, this is what Grenada Prime Minister Maurice Bishop said. He said, quote, "Destabilization is the name given the most recently developed method of controlling and exploiting the lives and resources of a country and its people by a bigger and more powerful country through bullying, intimidation, and violence." So anytime you observe in world politics a movement that's presented by the mainstream media as one of quote unquote freedom, but that is pockmarked with violence and intimidation, as in the case with many of the worldwide protests going on right now, think about why a movement that is supposedly about freedom is marked by violence and intimidation against the very people that live in this country. So, because like in Hong Kong, Hong Kongers are killing other Hong Kongers, right? Their violence and intimidation are two behaviors that are antithetical to the very establishment of freedom in a nation. So just let's all use our common sense here, right? And promote love and not fear and hatred. Secondly, destabilization can be applied through a multi-pronged attack by those in power. So it just doesn't have to be destabilization through physical violence. You can destabilize a country economically through economic sanctions. And economic sanctions right now are being applied against Iran, Venezuela, Crimea, Iraq, Lebanon, Libya, Mali, Russia, Syria, who else? That's just off the top of my head. I can think of 9 countries right now that are being destabilized through economic sanctions. And the nations that enforce economic sanctions are either at odds with the corporate or political power structure in those nations. So the goal of economic sanctions, is admitted numerous times by those employing the strategy, is regime change. It is to induce a state of despair and learned helplessness among the population, to encourage them to rise up and overthrow their nation's leaders. This is why we witness in nations that have economic sanctions employed to strangle the economy, to suck all the economic life out of the citizens of that nation, why we witness so much regime change in those nations. So the appropriate responses to situations of despair and helplessness is to fight back with love. However, as I said, and when I opened this video, to implement love is not easy, because we must first understand these situations. And the only way to increase understanding is to speak truth to power, which is going to voluntarily increase the stress and trouble in our lives. So this is a topic that's very much worth discussing this holiday season, however, because without love, the future of humanity is very bleak. If we continue forward on the same path we are on right now, because the path we are on right now is one that encourages division and fighting. It does not encourage love among humanity. The future of humanity will remain bleak, but love can reverse this bleak pathway and turn our bleak future into a brilliant one. Only love can do this. So this holiday season, my wish is for all of us to improve the unity in our families and communities by having the types of discussions I present in this short video, to foster understanding about the topics that currently divide us, whether these topics are political, religious, or scientific. And just as the Grenada Prime Minister said, destabilization is often a strategic construct that is embraced by those in power to control us. They also will try to destabilize our mind, and they destabilize our mental state by forcing us to take sides about information that we understand nothing. We have no true understanding about these situations. So promote understanding, and we promote love. So my wish is for everyone to embrace love, not division, this holiday season. And I wish for everyone to have a beautiful and safe holiday season, and also a very warm and fruitful new year as well. Okay, have a beautiful day or beautiful night. And until next time, always remain intensely curious. Bless up.